Thank you, ma'am, for that warm welcome.
Next, we invite Dr. M. IAS, retired, Chairman of the Kochi International Foundation, to offer his remarks on behalf of the foundation. Sir, the stage is yours.
Thank you for that introduction. Honorable Justice Sri Sirijagan, Honorable Justice Sri Dr. S.Muralidhar, colleagues on the dais, my colleague directors and invitees, members of the faculty and students, friends. I always believe it's always a delight to be in the midst of younger minds because that further rejuvenates our thought process. And I suppose with a wonderful speaker here who has delivered very remarkable judgments and who has very concrete views on the topic which has been selected for today, I'm sure it's going to be an exciting session this afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Muralidhar, for agreeing to be here, and thank you, Justice Srijagan, for agreeing that the Kochi International Foundation, a newly born institution in the city of Cochin, to co-host this program. I don't intend taking much time because we have a very powerful speaker here today, delivering an address on a topic of particular interest for you all, and I'm sure it's going to be very enlightening. About the Kochi International Foundation, I may briefly mention this is a new beginning in the city of Kochi. Some of you who have traveled or who keep reading would have heard about the India International Center in Delhi, established during the early 60s. Here, when we took this initiative last year, people were trying to make a distinction between a center and a club. One of the first statements we always make is we are different from a club. Ours is a platform where ideas get discussed, discussions happen, some cultural programs would get presented. So it's a forum where people can get together and either exchange ideas or participate in the process of enjoying art, literature, culture, etc., or also contribute to the process of intellectual and other such activities in the city of Kochi. We thought that was something which was lacking here, and we made bold to take this initiative as a non-profit initiative, and I'm glad that this university, esteemed institution, has given us this opportunity of co-hosting this program. Two of our founder directors, Justice Satish Chandran and Sri Dinesh Thampi, both are present here in your midst. So I suppose after this, when you have an opportunity, you can interact with them also briefly once the main program is over. Thank you all for attending this program, and thank you for being part of the process of the Kochi International Foundation making its presence felt in the city of Kochi. I'm sure there will be some keenness amongst some of you, at least maybe the faculty members, to find out as to what does the foundation do. We have a website which gives details, and since Justice Sirijagan himself is part of our esteemed group of members, it's a membership-based organization. I'm sure some stage he will also be able to share some of his experiences and some of his ideas with you as far as the foundation's activities are concerned. With that brief remarks, I would like to stop here. Thank you once again for this opportunity, and like you all, I also look forward to listening to this powerful speaker who has delivered some very remarkable judgments. I'm sure since this is a day of Google and things like that, you have already researched and found out about his judgments, so I don't have to make a reference to that. But it'll be interesting and rejuvenating at the same time to learn about our Constitution, why amendments take place, where does the Constitution need interpretation, and what changes need to be brought about even in tune with today's scheme of things. I was just trying to understand, we have a Constitution as a living document. At the same time, we have also reached a stage of the 129th Amendment being presented and being taken up for discussion. So Constitution also has to mean what is best for the people of the country. And since I am not an expert, I don't want to go beyond this, I stop at this stage. I've been a practitioner as far as the Constitution and its spirit is concerned, and I do not have anything more to say on this. So even some of the remarks which I make may attract a comment by Dr. Muralidhar, so I don't want to venture into that area. But it's a very interesting, very lively area of understanding the Constitution and how changes take place. If at all there is something which is lacking in the Constitution, how does the judiciary look at it and make it meaningful for a larger section of people? And that's where I think the key judgments which Justice Muralidhar delivered along with either companion judges or on his own make a remarkable difference as far as Constitution meaning what is relevant for the people is concerned. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and like you, I also look forward to listening to you in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Now, we request Honorable Mr. Justice S.Muralidhar, Acting Vice Chancellor of Nuals, to deliver the presidential address.
Chief Guest of the Day, Dr. Justice Muralidhar, Mr. Ramachandran, Dr. Leena Akka Matthew, Dr. Nandita Narayan, Justice Satish Chandran, members of the Cochin International Foundation, faculty and officers of the Nuals, and my dear students. First of all, I would like to thank the Cochin International Foundation for co-hosting this event. I don't think it is time for a lengthy presidential speech. Contrary to what a politician had recently remarked in Kerala, ours is a unique constitution which is acclaimed all over the world. Dr. Justice Muralidhar is an expert on our constitution, and his interpretation of certain aspects of the constitution will certainly richly benefit our students here. Since he has to return today itself, I don't want to make further speeches on the subject of today. I would leave the stage to Dr. Justice Muralidhar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is now a privilege to welcome our chief guest, Honorable Dr. S.Muralidhar, former Chief Justice of the Odisha High Court, to deliver the keynote address. A distinguished jurist and human rights advocate, Justice Muralidhar has served with distinction on the benches of the Delhi, Punjab and Haryana and Odisha High Courts. Known for his landmark judgments on housing rights, gender equality and constitutional freedoms, his career reflects a lifelong commitment to justice, compassion and constitutional values. We are truly honored to have him with us today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you and a very warm good evening to everyone. Justice Sri Jagan, Dr. Ramachandran, Dr. Leena Akka Matthew, Dr. Nandita Narayan, Justice Satish Chandran, and all the other distinguished members of the audience and dear students. I am deeply honored and very happy to have been invited by both the Cochin International Foundation, of which Dr. Ramachandran is the chair, and Nuals, of which I've heard quite a bit in the past years, to be invited to deliver this lecture. So let's begin at where the Constitution began. So after about 2 years and 11 months and 17 days of deliberations, in which they had 11 sessions and over 165 days, the Constitution makers came up with the final draft of the Constitution. So the date was 26th November 1949. And within 2 months from then, the Constitution was going to come into force. So, as I do very often in some of these lectures, particularly if it's on the Constitution, thank you, I begin with playing a small clip from a film on the Constitution made by Shyam Benegal. He passed away last year. He's an acclaimed filmmaker, and he made this film series called Samvidhan, which was screened on Doordarshan. And I'm playing the first few minutes of that clip. And for the younger lot here, there's a small quiz. I want you to give at the end of the lecture at least names of 3 of the persons you're going to see here. All right?
अगर हम सब ये चाहते हैं कि अंग्रेजी की जगह हमारी मुल्क की जबान तमाम मुल्क की कौमी और फेडरल जबान हो जाए, तो इस वक्त हमारे सामने इसके सिवा और कोई चारा नहीं है कि एक मुद्दत तक हम सब्र और इंतजार करें। जहां तक जबान का ताल्लुक है, तो आमतौर पर ये बात मान ली गई है कि कौमी जबान वो जबान हो सकती है जो उत्तरी हिंद की जबान हो, लेकिन इस वक्त उत्तरी हिंद की जबान के लिए 3 नाम पैदा हो गए हैं, उर्दू, हिंदी और हिंदुस्तानी।
चंद मिनटों में ये असेंबली पूरी तौर से आजाद खुद मुख्तार असेंबली हो जाएगी और नुमाइंदगी करेगी एक आजाद खुद मुख्तार मुल्क की। हमने एक मंजिल पूरी की है और आज उसकी खुशियां मनाई जा रही हैं, लेकिन ये भी हम जानते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान भर में खुशी नहीं है।
We are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality. And in social and economic life, we will have inequality. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man, one vote, and one vote, one man. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one man.
समिति में इस विषय को लेकर 2 तरह के मत थे। एक ये राय थी कि नागरिकों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा अधिकार देने चाहिए, जिनकी बिना पे वे सीधी तरह अदालत में जाकर अपने हक सिद्ध करवा सके। और दूसरी ओर ये राय थी कि बहुत ही कम मगर अहम मूल अधिकारों तक फंडामेंटल राइट्स को सीमित रखना ही उचित होगा।
Mr. President, the flame of God is invoked by every nation of honor, and God is an impartial entity, and He should be allowed to remain so. With these words, I appeal to Mr. Kamath not to put us into any embarrassment of voting upon God.
It is said that the state should, within a period of 10 years, introduce free compulsory education. Let us assume that the state does not do so then. Can any court of law enforce it? Against whom? In case a decree is granted by court of law, who will carry it out? If the government does not carry it out, can the High Court or Supreme Court enforce it?
The great problem in providing for and guaranteeing fundamental rights in any constitution is where to draw the line between personal liberty and social control. True liberty can flourish only in a well-ordered state, and when the foundations of the state are not imperiled. The problem of minorities has been solved by common agreement in a manner satisfactory to the various parties concerned, and the draft constitution merely seeks to give effect to the agreement reached.
जब आज वर्षों के संघर्ष और जद्दोजहद के बाद हम अपने देश के शासन की बागडोर अपने हाथों में लेने जा रहे हैं, हमें उस परम पिता परमात्मा को याद करना चाहिए जो मनुष्यों और देशों के भाग्य को बनाता है।
So that was 26th November 1949. And the idea of playing this clip was to remind ourselves what were the concerns expressed by persons who made the Constitution. They still had a lot of questions in their minds, and you could see some of them asking those questions. One major question, of course, was enforceability of the directive principles of state policy, restrictions on freedoms and liberties, language that needs to be adopted, how far do we make religion central to our lives, and so on and so forth. And of course, the working of the courts. How do you go to a court? How do you ask for enforcement? So many of these questions have remained with us even after 75 years of the Constitution. So in 2025, 26 January, the 75th year of the Constitution was completed, and simultaneously of the Supreme Court as well. And it is as good a time as any to ask ourselves where we began, how we traveled, and where do we find ourselves as far as working this democratic constitution is concerned. So let's begin with the preamble. I know there's a lot of criticism that ours is a constitution full of borrowed provisions. The correct way to understand this, that we've studied a lot of constitutions, and that's what these constitution makers did over a period of 2 years, 11 months and 17 days. They studied a lot of constitutions around the world, adapted those provisions which they thought would work for India, but very importantly added certain provisions which are unique to the Indian constitution, and I'll come to that in a minute. And those provisions came in largely owed to the lived experiences of Indians who sat in that Constituent Assembly. So we begin the preamble by giving ourselves a constitution. So it is not that somebody has to give us our rights, we just proclaimed those rights for ourselves. This is very important for us to understand. It's not that the Constitution gives us rights, the Constitution recognizes the rights that we have. And as law students, you should bear this in mind when you talk of interpretation of the Constitution. So it acknowledges who we are as people, who we are as individuals. So while we formed a sovereign democratic republic, and the words socialist and secular, as you know, came in through the 42nd Amendment in 1976, we also hoped that these would be our goals. We would have justice in 3 spheres: social justice, economic justice, and political justice. Because these were to be the foundational principles, the foundational values on which we would build the edifice of a democratic India. Liberty of thought and expression, belief, faith, and worship. So this is put in the preamble because something which we will not compromise on, non-negotiable, something on which everybody agrees. So these are those foundational values of the Constitution which have been written into the preamble. And very often you will find judgments telling you that the preamble is the key to interpreting the Constitution. And in fact it is. It talks of distributive justice because it talks of equality, not paper equality or formal equality, but substantive equality, right? Effective equality. And equality of status. If the preamble uses the word status, it connotes several things. It acknowledges that there is an equality in status in Indian society as of 1949, and which is what Dr. Ambedkar is referring to, which you heard him say. We are going to enter into a life of contradictions. This is a speech that has been quoted ad nauseum in several judgments of the Supreme Court and in many public platforms. And that inequality of status, unfortunately, stays with us in a variegated form even as of today, which is 11th April 2025. So 2 things, equality of status and of opportunity. These are very, very weighty words because not everybody has an opportunity to realize one's full potential. And it brings in several jurisprudential principles of which we will have a brief look in the course of this lecture. Last, and this is what Ambedkar remind us of the two absences in Indian society as on 26th November 1949. And those two absences, he said, were one of equality, the other of fraternity. Fraternity meaning that you should be able to coexist peacefully, respect each other, be able to accommodate differing points of view, differing ways of thinking, different styles of living, different choices. Fraternity was that ideal for which the real constitution was made, because it is not merely a legal document, it is a political document, but it is also a document of social aspiration. And it's, if you read the text carefully, it incorporates many of the aspirations of the Indians of that day. Whether they are the older Indians or the younger Indians or the middle-aged Indians, they were all aspiring for a society which would be egalitarian, but which society would respect the dignity of the individual. So when we were confronted with this issue in the Delhi High Court of decriminalizing section 377, the one thing that really appealed to us as judges, and we were persuaded by the lawyers who argued so forcefully, was this concept of dignity of the individual. So the respect for dignity of the individual is what has seen us recognize the differences in our society and have had to remind ourselves that this constitution expects us to be an inclusive, plural society. So dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. So these are in two spheres. You respect the dignity while you keep in mind the unity and integrity of the nation. So whenever you have a doubt, and this is what we used to tell judicial officers, whenever you have a doubt about what choices you make, I would tell you as law students, whenever you have a doubt as what choices you have to make in life, you may want to go to a religious text, you may want to go to a philosophical text, but your natural instinct should be to go to this text, which is the Constitution of India. Because it gives you a key to understanding how Indians must live their lives. It reminds you that India is a plural society, it's a variegated society, it has diversity. That's the richness of India, and you should learn to respect that. So liberty, equality and fraternity were very close to Dr. Ambedkar's heart. And in his speech, which he delivered on 25th November 1949, and I've only pulled out a few extracts, he says liberty cannot be divorced from equality, equality cannot be divorced from liberty, nor can liberty and equality be divorced from fraternity. So it's like a tripod, right? You can't, the whole structure becomes weak if you remove one. Without equality, liberty would produce supremacy of the few over the many. So this is how you find wealth inequality, income inequality, status inequality. Inequality in the political sphere. We're going to be talking about all that today, because when we talk of a transformation, when we talk of a document which aids the transformation, we must understand what are the essential values of that document. And Dr. Ambedkar reminds us that without equality, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many. Equality without liberty would kill individual initiative. You need security of the individual. You need a state with this huge apparatus which monopolizes violence in a sense, which has legitimate control over violence. We expect that state to guarantee the security of the individual, of the family, of the society, of communities, of minorities, of the weak, of the oppressed, of the underprivileged. So liberty becomes a very essential facet of the Constitution. Without fraternity, liberty and equality could not become a natural course of things. It would require a constable to enforce them. What happened, I think 10-15 years ago in Bangalore was very telling. Somebody passed on a message in social media about people from the Northeast. And then within a few hours, the Bangalore stations could not handle the population of people from the Northeast wanting to go back to their homes. That is, of course, the power of the social media, but it also told us how weak our arrangements are as society to protect this constitutional value of fraternity. If you don't feel part of a society, if you don't feel part of a community, if you feel discriminated against, then this entire edifice of the Constitution becomes weak, because that important constitutional value of fraternity is getting violated. So this is a beautiful passage to which you can go back again and again, because don't see these concepts in isolation, see them as interconnected, and without that interconnection, you don't understand your value as an individual, your privilege as an individual, or your weakness as an individual. All of us are a bundle of so many things. We have several identities all built into us. The Constitution helps you to unravel those individual identities. And why those individual identities are so important, right? Why is it necessary for this Muslim girl in a Bangalore school to wear her hijab? What is that compulsion that she feels? Why do you need to respect that? That is something. Let's say a person making her own choice about whom she wants to marry, whom the parents oppose. What is that you need to respect? About somebody wanting to celebrate, he may be a person from the backward classes or scheduled caste. Why can't they celebrate in the same way festivals or marriages or other festive occasions, the same way as the dominant majority does? So these are all questions that are posed to us directly on a reading of the Constitution. It tells us who we are as individuals and tells us what we should do to make this Constitution work, not just for ourselves, but for all of those others who are weak, underprivileged, deprived of opportunities, deprived of privilege. This is Ambedkar's understanding of what fraternity is. He says fraternity means a sense of common brotherhood of all Indians, of Indians being one people. It is the principle which gives unity and solidarity to social life. So, there are several provisions built into the Indian Constitution which are unique to the Indian Constitution, which have what I call the transformative potential. Now, one is Article 15 of the Constitution. So, I don't know how many of you are making notes. If I were you, I would make notes, but I can't compel you to make notes. Article 15 encapsulates the concept of what is called horizontal equality. And it prevents one person discriminating against the other. So you enforce rights against the state in a vertical arrangement, right? In a hierarchical arrangement. You find so many writ petitions filed against the state. There's one writ petition which you can file against individuals. Which is that writ petition? Can anyone tell me? Yeah. I think the faculty should be banned from answering. I want the students to answer. It's the writ of habeas corpus. Can you tell me a situation in which you will file a writ of habeas corpus against another private individual, which is happening every day in all our high courts? No? Not even a guess? I don't believe this entire classroom has boys and girls who don't have girlfriends and boyfriends. Come on, I've given you a big hint. Young couples are approaching the courts these days, asking for protection not from the state, from their own parents. They are interfaith couples or intercaste couples who know they face violent backlash back in their homes, back in their communities, back in their societies. So they come seeking protection against other individuals. Sometimes a boy is wrongfully confined in his house, who's above 21. A girl above 18 is confined in her house by her own parents. So the boy comes to the court saying, we got married last year, but now her parents have kept her locked in the house. So the first answering respondents would be the parents themselves. So the writ of habeas corpus expects this recognition of horizontal equality, that is, you have horizontal rights. Another citizen, another person who could be your neighbor, who could be in the same community, in the same family, is expected to respect your right, your choice. It's all easier said than done. These are all the testing points, correct? how far we've internalized these constitutional principles. So one thing that gets played out every day in our courts is this: young couples coming to the High Court to say, protect us from our parents. So I must share with you how different we as judges can react to this. In our midst today, we have 3 judges, right? One is sitting on the dais, one is sitting in the audience, one is speaking to you. There is something called the National Judicial Academy. In fact, I think 3 of us met there in Bhopal. So I was having a conversation with a counterpart from another high court in northern India, and I was telling that person that, day in and day out in the Delhi High Court, and I happened to be presiding over the criminal roster then, and we were dealing with habeas corpus petition. I used to say that I get at least 5 to 10 petitions from young couples asking that, they need protection from their own parents. And I say we err on the side of caution. We first give them the protection and then call the parents to the court. And we ask the SHO or the IO or whoever that is in charge of the police station to give them the protection they need, not disclosing their place of residence. The judge from the other high court says, no, my approach is very different. When a young couple come before me, I will first ask myself, what if this was my daughter? Or what if this was my son? So then he said, I will first trust the parents. According to him, he said, I can never believe any parent will want to do any harm to any child. This is where he came from. He genuinely believed that parents are incapable of harming their own children. When I tried to having a dialogue with him on honor killings, he would have none of it. He would say, no, all those are aberrations, distortions, that doesn't happen in our society. He then told me that as 2 judges with different orientations, depending on our own personal life experiences, we allow that to come in to adjudicate on whether this request by a young couple before us is genuine or not. So it can become so subjective. So something as a habeas corpus petition, which involves enforcement of a horizontal principle of equality, can result in 2 different outcomes. So this itself tells us what are the barriers to that so-called transformation that we are looking for. Although we have the tools for transformation, we need to know when to pick up those tools, how to wield them, how to utilize them, how to help ourselves become better persons. Correct? So this is the big challenge that the Constitution places before us. So Article 15 is a very, very important provision in our Constitution, and it is because Article 15 very clearly spells out there can be no discrimination on the basis of a whole range of things which it spells out: religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. There are a large number of migrant labor here in Kerala, correct? Yes or no? Can you tell me which states they come from? Any one of you? Construction labor. So many buildings under construction in Kochi. Where do they come from? Bihar. So how do you talk to a Bihari? Many of you were staring at the screen when Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, I should have not disclosed his identity, spoke to you in such chaste Hindustani, right? So if a person from Bihar speaks to you do you know there are dialects in Bihar? Do you know the dialects in Bihar? Okay. Then? Maithili, correct. Excellent. Are you from Bihar, the one who's answering? Then one more, Magadhi. So how do you converse with that person? Correct? So you can discriminate on the grounds of language, right? And people have told you so many things in Kochi itself. Acha, this man is from the harbour area. This man is from Kalamasheri. This man is from there. Oh, people from that area I know. Don't tell me more. In Delhi, there's a welcome colony. I don't know how many of you have been to Delhi. So the witness gets into the stand. The judge asks him to take an oath. He says, where are you living? He says, I come from welcome colony. The judge makes a mental note. Acha, this guy is from welcome colony. Straight away Article 15 gone out of the window. You're straight away discriminating on the basis of place from where you come. Within that place, if you're having a beard, You know what happened to Kamala Hassan? You have all heard of Kamala Hassan. I hope you've heard of Kamala Hassan. Used to be my hero in my childhood. He split his name as Kamal Hassan, correct? And after 9/11, they were looking for anyone associated with the name of a person called Hassan. Because one of the plane hijackers was a Hassan. So Kamala Hassan, by his name, got discriminated. I don't know how many of you have read the Julius Caesar play. No, not even one person has read Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar itself is a tragedy. This is a bigger tragedy. Please do read Julius Caesar. It's my earnest appeal to you. It has so many things that you can take away from. If you want to be good advocates, you should know the power of rhetoric. Have you heard of Mark Antony's speech or you've not? Have you seen Marlon Brando deliver it? No. See, you're wasting your time on the net. This is what you should be seeing. How a rhetorical dialogue is delivered. Anyway, in Julius Caesar, Mark Antony says there is all these conspirators who've killed our dear Caesar. One of them is a person called Cinna, Cinna. So the mob is furious. They're looking for Cinna. Somebody tells them, this is Cinna. So the mob attacks that Cinna. That Cinna says, I am the poet. I am the poet Cinna. I am not that conspirator. They say, anyway, kill him for his bad verses. So you get discriminated on a name. So if you happen to be a person with a beard, if you happen to wear a skull cap, automatic inferences are drawn. Indians get very furious. Some of my Indian friends from US say, they mistook me for a Pakistani. Very agitated. Why would the American know the difference between Indian and Pakistani? Correct? Why would they know the difference between a Pakistani, Palestinian, Indian, or an Asian? So we encounter discrimination like this abroad. But when we come here, we have no problem practicing it. Absolutely no problem. So we live dichotomous lives. So Article 15, to come back, tells you what you need to do at an individual level to stop living dichotomous lives. Don't discriminate somebody because they eat crabs, because they eat beef, because they wear clothes in a certain way, they speak, the language in a certain way. English accents. India is the only country where we talk in English in several languages. Correct? So don't discriminate. So as law students, you have that extra responsibility to practice these things at an individual level. Somebody is obese, somebody is short, somebody limps. Within your classroom, we've seen this in school, right? You become a butt of jokes. Law school is a place where you grow up, presumably. You have to learn to see the individual for who that individual is, right? This is a wonderful opportunity. So every day in the morning, parents might tell you, pray to God, do this, do that. Your marks are very poor, go to this Ganesh temple, pray that you will break 101 coconuts, go to this church, make offering, say that I will do this, I will do that, so that I clear my first semester, third semester, fifth semester with flying colors. But also pick this up every morning. This is my request. Pick this up every morning. Once read the preamble, once read Article 15. See, I'm not asking you to read 14 and 21 and all. 15. For social life, 15 is the best. Highly recommended for improvement of the self. So 15 also tells you, no citizen shall only on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction or condition with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels and places of public entertainment. If I tell you that in India today, if you go into the rural countryside, there are areas into which Dalits cannot walk, will you agree with me or not? You will. In Kochi city, there will be areas where people will not let out their houses to Muslims. Will you agree or not? There are boards in housing societies in major cities in India which say none of these flats will be sold to non-vegetarians. So each of this is a testing point for this Article 15. This is a solemn document that Indians drew up. If you try and compare the US Constitution, the Australian Constitution, and you keep the Indian Constitution and look for which is the similar thing to Article 15, you will not find it. How many of you have heard of Vaikom Satyagraha? Why is that hand not going up? It's staying here. How many of you been to Vaikom? How many of you been to Vaikom? So those who have been to Vaikom should take the others who have not been to Vaikom. The temple, Manjunatha Swami temple, is excellent. It's got a wonderful architecture. You should visit that temple. But you should know who was prevented from visiting that temple. Who are the political leaders involved in the Vaikom Satyagraha? Any guesses? No. See, this is a document of history also, all right? Please try and understand, so much history goes into every one of these provisions. There have been agitations over temple entry, agitations over sharing a well. You know, in India today, in some of our villages, upper caste people can draw water from a well, and no Dalit, no lower caste person, no untouchable can go and draw water from the same well. This is happening today. We are on 11th April 2025. It's happening in India. There will be some who tell you, no, it's a very small percentage. You know, all this happens. Which society is perfect? They'll tell you. No society is perfect. You know, earlier these people, they had to walk like this in the street. Today they are walking like this. Great achievement. Sir, yesterday they could not even come to these offices. Today you come to the Central Secretariat. So many of them are there. Is that an achievement? The achievement will be when you do not recognize this as a difference. That is the true transformation. So when we talk of transformative constitutionalism, it starts with the individual. So in the Constitution itself, they arranged it as part of fundamental rights. This is all inviolable. You know, Nandita included Keshavananda as one of the transformative judgments, correct? What is transformative about Keshavananda? That fundamental rights chapter can't be taken away by anyone. It's so integral to the Constitution. Tomorrow a brute majority comes in. They control both houses of parliament. They control most state assemblies. Right? The real Achhedan has arrived. And they say, now we will rewrite the Constitution. But this is not unique to India. World over they find, using the processes of democracy, one of the processes is elections, correct? We have a first past the post. All of us, let's just say we are 100 in this room. We all have the right to vote. Tomorrow there's election. Some of us are very lazy. The election booth starts at 7 in the morning. I don't get up. I'm busy with my laptop, my tablet and all till 3 in the morning. I have no time to get up. I get up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And by the time I go to that booth, the queue is so long, I get bored, fed up. I say, who's going to waste time on this? All politicians are useless. I won't vote. What's the point? Yeah, I put a vote and somebody comes to power anyway. So indifference. Don't vote. So out of 100 people, only 60 go to the booth. You've heard of this voter turnout, right? In that 60% turnout, somebody gets 20% of the vote, 30% of the vote. And that person becomes elected. So in real terms, we say rule by the majority, right? It's not the majority. It's a majority of those who decided to vote. So you have all this discontent. You always have people turn around and say, I never voted for this person. Why should I accept this? Correct? Because you didn't do your first step. You never went to the booth and voted. So you end up getting whoever gets the 30% of the vote. Right? So your participation in a democratic process is so important. Only then you can make this constitution work. And Ambedkar realized it long, long ago in his speeches where he talks of 3 forms of democracy. So I'll run through the rest. 2 other provisions that I want you to pay attention to. I don't know how many of you are today carrying this for your lecture. No, not even one of you. Do you have your phones with you on which you can see the constitution or not? Please, this is one classroom where I permit you to take out your mobile phones. It's for a good cause. Please turn to the Constitution Bare Act. Please read Article 17 with me. And I'll tell you what is so unique about Article 17 which you don't find in any other constitution. It reads abolition of untouchability. Untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. So there is no constitution, written constitution in the world which prescribes an offence. It's only a penal law which will prescribe an offence, right? Constitutions don't talk of offences. Our constitution does. Why has this been put as part of the fundamental rights chapter? This is that social transformational provision. The other provision which is socially relevant is Article 23. Please turn to that. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. It says traffic in human beings and begar. You get the word begar? It's a Hindustani word. It's supposed to be italicized. You know how many bare acts of the Constitution spell it as B-E-G-G-A-R? Which means they don't know three things. They definitely don't know English, they don't know Urdu or Hindustani, and definitely they don't know the Constitution. So as law student, you don't make the mistake. Begar is an Urdu word, Hindustani word, which talks of exploitation of persons for their labor. We have child labor in this country, we have bonded labor in this country, and they're exploited day in and day out. We have domestic help, you have farm labor. You've heard of all this. You have sex workers, trafficked young girls being used for sex work, trafficked children being used for all kinds of illegal activities, including peddling of drugs. So all of this is encompassed in Article 23, and Article 23 also says that it shall be an offence. Do you get that? Any contravention of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. So there are these two provisions of the Indian Constitution which are social transformative provisions. If it was taken seriously, if it was enforced seriously, we should not, after 75 years of the Constitution, be still having persons who we treat as untouchables, whom we will not share a meal with, who will be served tea in shops in separate glasses, separate utensils, and where a ruling party MLA will clean up, purify the house, which is allotted to him because it was previously occupied by a Dalit. He needs to be publicly reprimanded by his party for doing it, but he didn't think twice to do it. There was a High Court judge in Allahabad who cleaned his chamber with Ganga Jal because the previous occupant was a Dalit. So these are the harsh facts about our lived life in India, and you should be alive to it. A Dalit, have you heard of this riding a horse or your barat? How many of you are aware of this? The groom riding a barat, a horse on the barat. Only one person. I'm a bit surprised. All of you must be watching Bollywood films, they say. You know, Dalit men can't ride a horse on their own wedding day. They have to take extra police permission, protections. This is the lived reality of India today. All right. So these provisions were written hoping that those practices will stop, that we recognize the true intrinsic worth of human beings and don't discriminate against them because of their birth, their caste, their place of birth, or their religion, or their sex. So one of the challenges before us in the NAS Foundation judgment was, how do we read the word sex in Article 15? Does it include sexual orientation? And we adopted a progressive interpretation and said yes. And initially the Supreme Court disagreed with us in 2013. We delivered the judgment in 2009. In 2013, the Supreme Court disagreed with us. In 2017, they, with a thumping majority, affirmed it. And finally, in Navtej Johar, in 2019, we had the final judgment aligning itself with the NAS Foundation judgment, and that's how consensual sex amongst adult males was decriminalized in this country. And there are several such provisions which have the transformative potential, and I won't go through every one of them, but I'll focus only on one, which is the political transformation, which is the 73rd and 74th Amendments to the Constitution. I know this whole lecture is on what the courts do, but you must understand the transformation doesn't come only through court judgments. Transformation comes through what Parliament does, what an executive does, but most importantly, what a society does. You know, the attempts at transforming Indian society started long, long ago, even during the pre-independence era. How many of you have heard of Raja Ram Mohan Roy? Good. I'm glad to see so many hands up. So you need to be good students of history to know that attempts at transforming society, the two things that bothered him was sati and widow remarriage. And he worked hard at abolishing them. So sati abolition was a legislative measure thought of by the British themselves. Have any of you heard of the Sarda Act? The Child Marriage Abolition Act. Do you know which year it was passed? I hope you're making notes. This was passed in the year 1939. So if I tell you that in India today there are no child marriages, you would agree or disagree with me? I can't hear you. Why should you disagree with me? Why do you disagree with me? Why don't you get up, sir? Tell me your name. Dhruv. Yes, Dhruv. Where are you from? Good.
Sir, it happens in many parts of our country.
Do you know on one day it happens in thousands? There is a state called Rajasthan in our country.
Yes, I know.
Do you know there is a festival called Akha Teej? No.
Yes, sir.
That's the auspicious time for marriages there. And it's performed in thousands. And we are talking of 21st century. So, 73rd, 74th Amendments, for instance, decentralized power, right? Gave constitutional status to Panchayati Raj institutions and urban metropolitan bodies, municipal bodies. That's why you have the corporation elections and the panchayat elections assuming so much significance. But it didn't stop with that. It made reservations for people belonging to the scheduled caste. It made reservations for women. These are very progressive provisions. How we use those provisions is up to us. But these are provisions in the Constitution to transform. So where a woman would not have to come in a gungat and not open her mouth, stand behind her husband, today many of those women are very successful sarpanches in some villages in India. It also happens there are so-called sarpanch patis, who although the wives have got elected, the man can't, let her be. He has to take over the reins. That's also happening. But these have planted the seeds of transformation. That transformation is happening slowly and surely. It may not happen at the pace at which we want them to, but it is happening. So 73rd, 74th amendments are very, very significant amendments to the Constitution that enhanced political power in the hands of the underprivileged. The Mandal agitation was a huge agitation because it gave economic power to the underprivileged in sanctioning reservations. I belong to a very privileged family, an upper caste, and I was in your age very resentful of this word called reservation. I would hate the word quota. I would say I am working so hard, doing so well in my school, in my college, and somehow I cannot get a seat in engineering college. Somebody who has got only 45% has got into engineering college. I had no idea. I had no idea what it is to lead a life of being a child of a sweeper, of a sanitation worker. I didn't lead that life. I can't even vicariously lead that life. I don't know what it is to lead a life in a village in Uttarakhand where the child walks 2 hours to school, downhill, 2 hours uphill back to his house. I don't know that. I have my coaching classes. My parents are both employed. They have enough to provide me. I have no such cares. I don't have to work with them in the fields. I don't have to sit in my father's shop. I don't have to help my mother with domestic help, with cooking. I have no such cares. But this child has to do all that and then also come to school, also write the board exams with me, and I will say, she also wrote board exam, I also wrote board exam. What's the difference? I had no understanding. I had no understanding of what it means to be discriminated against. I may not practice discrimination. In fact, when we talk on discrimination to judicial officers, most of them will say, sir, for me everybody is equal. In my eyes, I make no difference between A and B and C and D. And then we retire for tea. The participants will be in one room, the resource persons will be in another room. But it's gone over their heads. They don't know that that is discrimination. I go to a temple, if I'm a VIP, separate queue, separate privilege. I don't know if it's discrimination. So from my point of view, I'm not practicing discrimination. That is what is being blind. See, when you belong to a certain class, you automatically discriminate against others because you have not known what it is to be on that side. You have not known what it is to get up at 4 o'clock every morning, cook for your entire family, catch that 5 o'clock bus or a train or a boat, to come to some house to work. You have not known all that, right? So it only takes a life in law, and I'm confessing this to you, it took me a life as a law student and then as a lawyer to understand the true purport of these constitutional provisions. You're in a very privileged position as a law student. I want to utilize that privilege fully. You utilize that privilege fully, first of all, by educating yourself about Indian society and about the Indian Constitution and what it stands for. And you internalize those values, only then you can progress. Otherwise, it's very easy to say, oh, this person got that extra help because with 45%, I know how these persons come in, and I am the one who's discriminated against. It's easy to flip it around. But we are forgetting that as a society, we continue discriminating against persons who belong to different castes, different classes, different religions, different communities. So I'll skip over this entire thing because we'll run out of time otherwise. So 3 forms of democracy. One is political democracy, that everybody gets a vote. I talked to you about the Panchayat Raj institutions. I talked about reservation for scheduled castes as sarpanches. There are villages in Madurai, in Tamil Nadu, where the upper caste people will not allow the person belonging to scheduled caste to file a nomination paper. You can frustrate this whole experiment of political democracy by not letting persons exercise their franchise. When the left front government was in West Bengal for all those years, booth capturing was routine. The left cadres will not allow people who don't vote for the left to come out of the villages at all. Most brutal violence was practiced. And that has become part of that whole culture now. Whichever party wants to practice that culture. You know who are going to vote against you, don't let them come into the booth at all. So you can frustrate this whole experiment which is written into the Constitution on political democracy if you don't have the underlying conditions. The underlying social conditions have to be such that it allows a person to freely exercise their constitutional right. If they don't have that freedom, they can't exercise this right. There are many areas in India today, like Jammu and Kashmir. The voter turnout never exceeds 10%. Why does it not exceed 10%? Militants will gun you down if they know that you are participating in a state-ordered process. State forces will can gun you down if they suspect you to be a militant. Many people say, why do you get caught in this? I'll stay at home. Frustrated. This whole political democracy gets frustrated because the social conditions we have created do not permit it to be exercised. Then, social democracy I've talked to you enough about. I won't, but these are the provisions. So what Article 38(1) asks you to do is minimize inequalities in income. They can't eliminate. That's utopian. You can't eliminate inequalities, minimize it. Eliminate inequalities in status. Look at the words, one is minimize, the other is eliminate. What is more pernicious is the inequality in status. That is achievable, that is in our hands as a society. How many of you have heard of Narayana Guru? What is this, sir? In Kochi, in a class like this, I am getting only a few hands. Please note down, those who have not heard of him, you will be depriving yourself of something very important if you don't know who Narayana Guru was. I am sure all the elder people here in the front row will be feeling very bad to know that there are so many people here in this room who don't know about this great man. See, there are reformers, there are social reformers who are original thinkers, who lived from the same society. They came from the same society as us. They came under the same traditions as us. Why did they think differently? Why was a Buddha different? Why was a Mahavira different? What gave Ambedkar that courage? They all believed in the potential for transformation, right? And the potential not in just themselves, potential in every one of us. And they also tell us how you can do it. They've lived their lives showing us. Why do we consider Mahatma Gandhi great? A simple act of cleaning toilets, right? Pick up the broom, clean the toilet. It's a big transformation. The man is a barrister at law. Don't forget that. For him to do that means you have to crush your ego completely, correct? So, lessons in history, personalities in history will tell us how we do these two things: minimize inequalities in income, eliminate inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities among individuals and groups. Next, so we saw political democracy, economic democracy. Now we are going to see economic democracy. Distribution of wealth and material resources to subserve the common good. Can you think of one statute in the last 10 years which seeks to achieve this? Anyone? Benefits of economic development to accrue to relatively less privileged classes of society and not result in common detriment. Can you think of any statute that has been enacted? No, same person shouldn't answer. I can't believe that for yes. Just get up and say it. Your other colleagues need to know what it is. How does it, what is the full expansion? Excellent, excellent. I think let's give him a hand, I say. Do you know how that statute was made? What is unique about the statute is there are two approaches to lawmaking. One is a top-down approach, the other is a bottom-up approach. Top-down approaches invariably fail. I talked to you about the Sarda Act, I talked to you about the Satya Abolition Act, I talked to you about the Dowry Prohibition Act. Even if I don't, I'm now talking to you about it. Dowry Prohibition Act is a 1961 act. And somebody spread a wild lie in my ear. They said Syrian Christians never accept dowry. Will you agree or not? I'm going to ask Dr. Ramachandran. So Syrian Christians, they said accept dowry, and I refuse to believe it. Would you agree or not?
I'll take a diplomatic position.
Why should you take diplomatic? I was told there is not a single religious community in India that does not believe in dowry. And I'm talking of the Muslims, I'm talking of the Christians, I'm talking of the Dalits, of course, Hindus. Any community you take in India, across religious denominations, dowry has to be given. We won't call it dowry these days, we call it decent marriage. Have you seen the matrimonial columns? This is one exercise you should all, Nandita, I'll request you to do. Let them pick up the matrimonial column on a Sunday and discuss that matrimonial column in your class. All right. What do you find in that matrimonial column? We talked of Article 15 in such glowing terms, right? That matrimonial column will tell you something very different in India. Do you know there's a stratification among Dalits? There's a stratification among Sikhs. Is any Sikh here? No. So caste is what they call is an elephant in the room. All right. So you can discriminate against certain people by depriving them of their livelihood. And that is what the economic democracy is about. So Manrega was an attempt at a bottom-up approach. There were mass movements that went village after village, mobilized public opinion, prepared a draft, gave it to the government, which then became a statute. There are 3 or 4 statutes like that. The Right to Information Act is another. I don't know if you want to note it down. These are all bottom-up statutes. All right. Not all bottom-up statutes work. I'll tell you one which has hopelessly failed. The National Food Security Act is another bottom-up act. It comes through lived experiences and best practices, identifying people below the poverty line, ensuring that they get their rations. Another more recent example of another bottom-up is Forest Rights Act. Not the original Forest Conservation Act, the more recent Forest Rights Act. That's a bottom-up approach. It comes through lived experiences. Another which has come through the bottom-up approach is the Lokpal Act. Any of you have heard of India Against Corruption movement? You heard of Anna Hazare? So the result of all that was the Lokpal. Are you happy with the Lokpal, sir, now? See, he's so correct. He's sitting there. He's more alert and listening than all of you. He's following what is happening in his society. Lokpal is a huge flop, although it is a bottom-up approach. So having the law is one thing, making it work is another. All right. So we've seen political democracy, social democracy, economic democracy, because democracy is not just going into the booth and voting for someone. It's far more than that. Democracy has to be practiced by the people. That's why they say, no, if you don't exercise your rights, you'll forget that you have a right. 2 dogs met at the Indo-Russian border. The Indian dog was all scrawny, rib cage visible, and the Russian dog was nice, fluffy, full furry. So they exchanged notes. The Indian dog said, listen, you seem to be getting excellent food, excellent weather. You're looking very hale and hearty. The Russian dog said, but you can bark. So what is so essential to a human being, right? That don't take it away from that human being. The life of a dignity, the life to exercise a freedom of thought, freedom of expression. That's very innate. The right to laugh, for instance. Today, what is being seriously threatened is the right to laugh. Except hyenas, I don't know anyone in the animal kingdom, any other living being which laughs. And hyena doesn't laugh because it has a sense of humor. It's because it to us sounds like a laugh. The only living being that can experience happiness and joy through sarcasm, through wit, through humor, is the human being. And when you laugh, you release so much tension, right? It's so inherent in you to laugh. Just as it's inherent in you to cry. Don't take away that right to laugh. And if that happens, then we are no longer a free country. We should have the ability to laugh at least. That's the minimum that should be guaranteed to us. Ambedkar was very concerned about what he calls reverence for the form of constitution. He knew on the day, 26 November 1949, we'll write wonderful things in this constitution, but it will all be business back as usual. Some Babu will sit in some table and said, okay, what will I get if I sign on this application? What will I get if I put up this application to my senior? The old habits will continue. There's no incentive. To that person sitting at a desk in a government office, this constitution is not going to make him transform. And this Ambedkar really feared. You know, there are employment exchanges where children from scavenger families, from sanitation workers' families, if they go to register, the man at the desk automatically registers them for sanitation work. So you end up having generations of rag pickers, generation of sanitation workers. We presume that they will be good at this. That's how we've discriminated against them for years on end. We said we have a Varna system. Each one is ordained to perform certain tasks. The Brahmin is ordained to be learned and to teach everybody else. Who ordained? No questions asked. It's ordained. Women are ordained to take care of the family, ordained to produce children, ordained to serve the husband. How many of you have seen Great Indian Kitchen? Great. This I like. It's a stunning film. Shows a mirror to us nicely. We have to break through those shackles, right? These are all tying ourselves in knots of darkness. We have to educate ourselves, you have to liberate ourselves. It is in your hand, individual hand. Well, if some guru comes along, has a magic wand, touches your forehead, and then you get enlightened, great. But the chances of that happening is 1 in a million. This is more easy. Touch this every morning, right? This is more likely to do that to you than all that. So constitutional morality, according to, so you can always say religious morality, societal morality, community morality, all are different. But constitutional morality is something else. It's believing in those 3 values I said. Liberty, fraternity, equality. It has to be dinned into you, but not as simple words, as actual practice. Every morning this woman comes to my house, sweeps and swabs the floor, cleans the vessels, washes my clothes. I have no idea what her life is about, where she lives, what is her family, what are her tensions, what are her pressures. I have no idea. I am paying her salary. Don't ask me to do all this. So there was one lecture in the National Judicial Academy on constitutional adjudication. So the speaker said, you know, it's not enough to know the law, to know the facts, but to have compassion. So 2 judges went to the speaker and said, what is this? All through our law years, we've been told you should know the law. We knew the law. Then so you should grasp the facts fully. We grasped the facts. They said you have to give reasons, you have to write judgments. We did also that. Now you're saying we have to have compassion. To them it was a huge burden. What is this one more facet of compassion? But that's the running theme of the Constitution. If you do not see from the other's point of view, this Article 15 will not work, constitutional morality will not work. So the last line which he says, and this I think want you to register, it's a wonderful phrase, democracy in India is only a top dressing on Indian soil that is essentially undemocratic, which is why we call it a document of a transformative potential. You can make it a more democratic Indian soil, and that is a task before all of us. I have set out here all the statutes that have been made corresponding to those directive principles of state policy. As law students, you should know what is the value of that Part 4. If you simply read judgments which say that Part 4 is not enforceable, Part 3 is, you will be mistaken, because for operationalizing what is said in Part 4, there is a whole set of statutes, and those statutes are all enforceable. So don't buy into this argument that directive principles of state policy are not enforceable in this country. They're definitely enforceable, because the Parliament has made statutes to make them enforceable. The one example is what a learned a young friend here said. So we have all these statutes, for instance, the prohibition of employment of manual scavengers and their rehabilitation. But nothing is happening on the ground. There's no will to make it happen, because this is a constituency which is numerically small, but has no business being discriminated against in an India of 21st century. So the argument that these are small numbers, minuscule populations, don't buy into that as well. Remember Gandhiji's talisman. Our measure should improve the life of the weakest person. You have to, in a democracy governed by the rule of law, think of everyone. Everyone counts, everyone matters. They may be in small numbers. If you look to the entire Kerala state, the Biharis will be a few lakhs, or maybe a few thousands. Does not mean that you can discriminate against them, correct? There is a minimum wages. Person from Kerala will say, give me minimum wages, otherwise I'm going on strike. As a builder, I'm now scratching my head that Bihari will work at half the rate. that Bihari desperately needs a job, he will not complain. He doesn't know my language. Where will he go to complain? The Bihari walks into a labor inspector's office, what will he complain? He walks into the police station, what will he complain? That I am denying him minimum wages. He will not complain. I am in a position to exploit him because he is desperate for jobs, right? His poverty is driving him to do that. And this Ambedkar spoke of long ago. I'll just read that passage. Which is why we need to be alert as citizens. Although we have all these statutes which are meant to address all these challenges, unless we work them for the benefit of those for whom it is meant, we will not achieve the transformation that we are looking for. So I've also drawn up what I call our inflection points in Indian political and legal history. So every time there has been a transformational move, there has been a backlash. In the initial years, the judiciary was very conservative. Judges were drawn from the strata of society which did not understand the problems of the underprivileged. And they grew up in a culture of feudalism and patriarchy. So it took a long time for this to register that the will of the parliament should not be easily tampered with if it is advancing the constitutional goal, which is egalitarianism, land distribution. This was one major move that was made in the initial years of the Indian Constitution, which immediately got struck down by the courts, and that's how the first amendment came about. And then there's been a series of amendments. So every time there has been a move which is perceived to be transformational, there is a backlash in the, within the framework of the Constitution itself. So at one point in time, in 1973, the Supreme Court had to assert parliamentary supremacy, but parliamentary supremacy subject to what is called the basic structure. So this I adverted to earlier also. This was a time when Indira Gandhi's government was in power. The Bangladesh war had been won, and she was at the peak of her popularity, and she had a 400 plus seats in parliament. So literally everything was for the asking. So this is when the court had to step in to say there are even limits to parliamentary power in our Indian constitution. And this is what subsequent brute majorities want to resurrect. You will always have somebody holding a constitutional office saying, no, there's nothing called basic structure. This is all a borrowed concept. Even this Indian constitution is a borrowed concept. We must go hark back to our traditional traditions and rewrite the constitution. But this is again not unique to India. It is happening now in America. Trump is not ruling out amending the constitution to give himself any number of terms. So this is a temptation always with person who comes on a populist vote, on a populist mandate. History is replete with this. The Greek history has examples of this. So we have to therefore be alert to all these pressures and counter pressures, these inflection points as I call them. So asserting that Parliament was supreme but subject to what we call as the basic features of the Constitution was a very, very important judgment. So Keshavananda is important on limits on state power. Constitution itself is to be read as a document of limits on state power, and the Keshavananda case forcefully asserted those limits on exercise of state power. It asserted judicial independence. Along with Keshavananda, you need to read another important judgment, which is Indira Gandhi versus Rajnarayan, where the Supreme Court struck down some very important amendments that could have resulted in transformation in the reverse. See, the word transformation does not have to be positive. It can even be negative. You can have a negative transformation. One negative transformation, now it's becoming abundantly clear, is what I've left back on the centerpiece there, the mobile phone. Right? You're not able to live without it. First thing in the morning, mobile phone. Last thing in the night, mobile phone. I'm a guard at the Nuals. I'm getting bored. The guard is always watching the mobile phone. You're at a dining table. Your parents are telling you something. You're watching your mobile phone. You're busy texting when the Nandita Narayan is desperately explaining to you Keshavananda Bharati. You're texting. Mobile phone. It's become overpowering thing for all of us. We become slaves to an instrument. So this is transformation, definitely transformation. Who said it is not? But it's not a positive transformation. Anything that keeps you enslaved to something cannot be a positive transformation. Anything that makes you lose control of your own destiny cannot be a positive transformation. So not all transformation is positive. So when we talk of transformational constitution, technology and the internet are reminding us, and now the AI will remind us constantly that not every transformation is something to be pined for, to be yearned for. Transformations will happen with passage of time, but there are some transformations that we have to resist if we have to make the constitutional goal achievable. So at various points in time, the courts have played a role which have either supported the transformation or halted the transformation. 1991, the economic policies liberalized the whole scene of industry. We invited multinationals to come and invest, made it easy for them to invest, and the courts went along with this. So there was a phase of deference by the court to policy decisions of the government. That's how you have a series of judgments that refuse to interfere with mega dam projects, for instance, the Teri Dam and the Narmada Dam, or Balco, which is the disinvestment of public sector enterprises. So economic policies, that tool being used by the government to usher in economic change, has been agreed to by the courts. But what it has resulted is in sharp inequalities. So economic policies, deferential. Legislative supremacy, put a check, say that there's something called a basic structure. Executive supremacy. So SR Bombay is a very important case for executive supremacy. The challenge was to orders passed by the President of India imposing President's rule in certain states. In SR Bombay, a constitution bench said even that is amenable to judicial review. These were some of the areas where usually it was a hands-off approach. There's some discretion in the President. There are very few areas of discretion. One area of discretion is inviting someone to form the government. If I have to invite a political leader to form a government, I can't take the advice of any cabinet. I have, as a president, to make up my mind on that. If you have to dismiss a government, if you have to decide whether somebody has lost the confidence of the House, I can't go by anybody's advice. I have to decide that. So there are certain areas where a governor or a president who typify the executive in our constitution have to take decisions using their own discretion. Bombay says even that is amenable to judicial review. So it's a very, very important judgment in terms of the experiment at transformation, so that it halts a negative transformation. If you allow executive supremacy, then all democratic elected governments can be thrown out. You can simply invite a report from a governor saying the law and order in the state has broken down so badly that you have to have president's rule, which means federalism goes for a toss, the central government takes over the administration of the state, and then the constitutional experiment is challenged. So this judgment in SR Bombay was an important inflection point, because after that judgment, the number of instances of use of president's rule has come down drastically. And every attempt at imposing president's rule thereafter has failed. And you should know this as students of history, that SR Bombay is a very, very important judgment to follow. I can talk about all the other kinds of things, but there's no time now for it. So I'll now move on to one more area of transformation, which is the Puttaswamy judgment, Justice Puttaswamy judgment, which recognized the fundamental right to privacy. And this is again a transformational judgment. And there are some transformations that have an arc, right? I talked to you about the NAS Foundation, its reversal in Sudesh Kaushal, NAS Foundation's assertion or reaffirmation in Navtej Johar. There's a whole arc that spreads over 10 years. And now it has come to stay. You have the Nalsa judgment, which recognizes the rights of transgenders. So now it's firmly established that the word sex in Article 15 includes sexual orientation, that you can't discriminate people on the basis of their sexual orientation. Does it mean that as a society today we don't discriminate against homosexuals? No. There's homophobia writ large. We recoil when we see trans persons, don't we? And there's a great resistance in a girls' hostel if a trans man comes in and says, I want to be part of the girls' hostel. Because it takes time. See, these things for you to mature, to refine your thinking, to accept that difference, to accept that variation, you have to expand your mind, you have to expand your thinking, and you have to learn to accommodate. And the Constitution is a very powerful document that can help you do it. So this whole set of judgments that I've written, Nas, Sudesh Kaushal, Nalsa, Navtej Johar, Joseph Shine, I think you've put it in your list of cases, and the most recent being same-sex marriage, Suprio. They tell you the tensions that is faced in society when these transformational moments occur. Gay pride happens in Kochi city. There's some tension in all families, correct? Maybe my child will go be part of that gay pride. Then what will happen to me? Nothing will happen to you, sir. Your understanding will expand. You will understand that there are people who are born that way, not that they have chosen to be that way. So this has had to be dinned in through all these judgments, because the counter argument always was that no, this is some mental disease. This is something, medical condition that has to be cured. It has taken so many judgments for the Supreme Court to tell us that this is innately recognizing the innateness of every person, who that person really is. So these are again inflection moments in Indian political and legal history, which tells us that the transformational experiment is still very much an experiment. It's a work in progress. We have much more to do as a society to achieve that goal. This is the speech I wanted you to read very carefully, and I'm going to read it. This is something that Ambedkar spoke of in the Constituent Assembly. Ask those who are unemployed whether what are called fundamental rights are of any value to them. If a person who is unemployed is offered a choice between a job of some sort, with some sort of wages, with no fixed hours of labor, and with an interdict on joining a union and the exercise of his right to freedom of speech, association, religion, can there be any doubt as to what his choice will be? How can it be otherwise? The fear of starvation, the fear of losing a house, the fear of losing savings, if any, the fear of being compelled to take children away from school, the fear of having to be a burden on public charity, the fear of having to be burned or buried at a public cost are factors too strong to permit a man to stand out for his fundamental rights. The unemployed are thus compelled to relinquish their fundamental rights for the sake of securing the privilege to work and to subsist. I want you to reflect on this passage. Ask yourself, when you look around yourself, do you find people who fit this description? Do some of them work for you? Do some of them make your lives better? You know, if you go in for a morning jog or a walk, you find the sweeper is there with mouth closed and doing the sweeping of the road. Have you paused to think, does that person fit this description? Person who's getting into the sewer and cleaning the sewer, does that person fit this description? The persons in the mortuaries, how many of you have been to a mortuary? Have you been to the landfill in Kochi? Has any of you been to the landfill in Kochi? Do you know what is a landfill? Okay, one more exercise for Nadita. You organize a trip, at least some of them will go to the landfill and talk to people they find in the landfill and tell the rest of the class whom they met and what the lives of those persons are, and does this document have any value for them? And can you as students use this document to make their lives better if you want to? If you think it is your right that they should clean your garbage, sort out your waste, that's another thing. If it somewhere hurts your conscience even this bit, to say why should that person be doing this job for me so that I live a healthy life in Kochi, that will be the moment of transformation. All right. So look around you. You've heard of this phrase called mindfulness, correct? Please look around you. All your trains run on time, at least most of them do. 24/7, right? Buses run 24/7, auto rickshaws, taxis. What are the lives of those people? Why should they be doing it? So let us care. See, we don't have a magic wand, we can't change the lives of everyone. But first of all, we start asking questions within ourselves. The change has to come from within. All right, it can't come from without. When you start looking, when you start paying attention, when you start asking questions, and then you read this document, it will make a lot of sense to you why these provisions were written and for what. I'm just going to take a small break and show you one video, and then This is a case which happened in Orissa. I must just give you a background. Vedanta is a company which runs an aluminium factory in this Rayagada district in Orissa. And there's a huge bauxite reserve on the top of a hill which the local Dongriya Counts revere as something spiritual. For them, the mountain is called Niyamagiri, and Niyama Raja, which is their god, resides on top of the hill. And that's the bauxite reserve. They want to actually mine bauxite from the top of the hill. And this Dongriya Counts have been resisting it for a long time. The story had a happy ending, but you should know what matters most to those Dongriya Counts. And that is the video I'm going to show you. This is a Dongriya Count woman who's telling others why she won't give up her fight. Close it, is it? Okay. Video is outside on the desktop.
Okay.
It's not in the same.
Okay.
Fine. So the good part of the story is, because of a Supreme Court judgment which goes by the name of Orissa Mining Corporation versus State of Orissa, public hearings took place in 13 Gram Sabhas, and all of those Gram Sabhas unanimously voted against the project, and that prevailed as the final decision not to permit Vedanta to have its bauxite plant in Rayagada and Orissa. A very positive story, and that's a judgment worth reading, where the Supreme Court is so important as an institution to halt negative transformations. So the constitutional experiment has to guard itself against negative transformation and encourage positive societal transformation that improves the lives of people. What we find in India today is not very encouraging. There are extreme levels of inequality, and this is all documented in this document which I have set out here, Income and Wealth Inequality in India. 22.6% of the national income went just to the top 1% in India. So you will always find economists use the word trickle down. They believe if the GDP increases, jobs will increase, benefits will trickle down to the rest of the population. But this story is telling us something else. It says the top 1% wealth share should at 40.1%. The number of Indians with wealth exceeding $1 billion at market exchange rate increased from 1 to 52 in 1991, 1 to 162 in 2011. 52 in 2011 and to 162 in 2022. The billionaire Raj headed by India's modern bourgeoisie is now more unequal than the British Raj held by the colonialist forces. Only 1% of Indians take 45% of the flights. 2.6% Indians invest in mutual funds. I'm sure you're seeing those advertisements every day today. 6.5% of the users are responsible for 44% of the digital transactions on unified payment interface. And 5% of users accounts for a third of orders placed on Zomato. The very rich have been doing very well. Why these are important to read is that we should know what are the lives of Indians who do not lead our lives. And only if you read, if you inform yourself, and most importantly stop looking at WhatsApp forwards, will you be able to ingest these facts. So the Human Development Index, which is a concept based on Amartya Sen's teachings and writings, says that merely because income levels increase doesn't mean the quality of life is improved. So the three parameters on which they test what is the quality of life is a long and healthy life. For instance, people in Delhi, many may be millionaires, but if they're going to live in that pollution, they can't enjoy good health. Correct? So money is not going to get you better health because you're in a city which is polluted. So long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. And these are all measurable. That tells you how well India is doing. And as per the 2024 HDI report, India is 134 among 193 countries, which is a medium human development. There are other indices like the Gender Inequality Index, where we are ranked 108 out of 193. The good news there is we are improving our ranks. We were doing worse off earlier. We are doing better now, but doesn't mean it's a big achievement. We should not be at rank 108 out of 193 countries. We must be in the top 30 or 40 if we have truly taken seriously this Beti Padhao slogan. We're still a long way away from it. And then on multi-dimensional poverty index, 12.9% are below the income poverty line and 4.2 in severe multidimensional poverty, and 16.4% suffer multiple deprivations. The percentages should not mislead you. In India, even 1% is a huge sum, right? It's 1 crore will be 1%. So I'm just saying that these percentages should actually cause you alarm when you look at the numerical translations of those percentages. In the Global Hunger Index, India ranks 105th out of 127 countries, which is really the bottom percentile. And it's very disturbing that 2.9% of children die before they are 5 in India. So, social progress again, basic human needs, nutrition, basic health care, water, sanitation, shelter, foundations of well-being, that is access to basic knowledge, opportunity, personal rights, freedom and choice and tolerance. And in 2024, India is ranked 110 out of 169 countries. So when you study the Constitution, it has to be a multidisciplinary study. Like I told you, it's not merely a legal document. And your information on the Constitution and what it stands for should not be only through judgments. Judgments are very important to know how to interpret provisions of the Constitution, to know how to translate some of the provisions into entitlements. Those are important studies to undertake. But you should also keep your ears and eyes open to look at society through other lenses of other disciplines, economics, sociology, political science. Because how else will you address this issue of having 6,31,000 in India displaced on account of violence, 2.5 million due to natural disasters, 21 million displaced due to development. Development, I mean projects. Somebody takes over your farmland because a power plant has to be set up. You're given compensation, you're asked to leave. and you are invariably migrating to a city, you are living in a slum. So your quality of life has plummeted overnight because the government, by way of its economic policy, has decided that it wants your land to set up the power plant. 18 million children live on the streets in India. And this is not out of choice. This is something that you will hear people saying, well, in some previous life, they must have done something wrong. That's why today he is born as a beggar. This document doesn't allow you those kind of facile explanations. We have to take ourselves seriously. We are the persons responsible for this. Unless you take responsibility for it, you can never do it. Like dirty work and decent work. You know, in our head, we don't have to clean our toilets. We don't have to collect our garbage. We can create the mess, but somebody else will clean it up. That thinking has to go. That thinking has to change. Only then you can have a personal transformation. Only then you can have a societal transformation. And only then you can have a transformation in the entire country. 129 million Indians live in extreme poverty. And there are 273,000 refugees, majority from Myanmar and Afghanistan. So what do we mean by transformative constitutionalism? It is using these provisions of the Constitution to better the lives of people, to transform the lives of people who are underprivileged, who are discriminated against, who are weak, and who've had traditional historical injustices done to them. Unless we improve the lives of those people, then this experimented transformation will fail. But for that, we need to alter ourselves as a society. It can't come from the top, mainly because I've reserved seats in government jobs, I've reserved seats in parliament, I've got quotas, I've given scholarships. That by itself will not mean anything. How do you treat others? How do you respect the dignity of the others? What do you experience? What do you impart? All that matters. How are we as a more equal society? And we know ourselves, are we treating others on the same footing as ourselves? Would we want to be done to us what we are doing to them? A simple thing, in the Judicial Academy, 2 judicial officers came to me who were Dalits. I said, how is it going? They said, very well, sir. I said, any complaints? They said, no. I said, lectures are all okay? Yeah. What about job? No problem, sir. One slight hesitation. I said, tell me what the problem is. So one of them said, sir, we come into a room for lunch. I am already sitting there at a table. Some 4 people enter the room. They go and sit at another table. Have you experienced this? Nobody comes to your table. Everybody finds some other friend to sit with. So that persons have not abused you. They have not told you, oh, you belong to this caste, that caste, nothing. A silent gesture where you go find your friends, you don't bother about who's ignored. Then within yourself you have a sense of loss of self-esteem. There's something wrong with me. Nobody's coming to me. Correct? You're all judges. You're all drawing the same salary. Why am I treated like this? How do you explain this? I keep telling people, if on that night in Pietermaritzburg, one gentleman was not thrown out of the first class compartment, we would not have this constitution. Do you know whom I'm talking about? Whom am I talking about? You have to experience, you have to sense discrimination. You should know what discrimination you're causing to others. Right? That has to be deeply ingrained. You have to take the proactive measure of going up to the person, how was your day today? Look at the person in the eye, smile at that person, put a hand on the shoulder. Something you have to do. We are talking of fraternity, we are talking of Bhaichara. This is so basic. Correct? How many of you have heard Rosa Parks? Isn't that a very inspiring story? We have to make that change. It is in our hands, and therefore we have to discuss it in a certain context. So I don't have the time to discuss all the writers whom we should look at. Roberto Gargarella is one such remarkable thinker. He's an Argentinian, and I'll just share his writing. I can't discuss it, there's no time. The book goes by the name of The Law is a Conversation Amongst Equals by Roberto Gargarella. The other writer you should definitely read is Nancy Fraser. She's written the book called Scales of Justice. I'm sure your library will have these books. If not, just make Nandita get those books, right? Nancy Fraser, Scales of Justice, where she talks of concepts of justice, the distributive concept of justice and the recognition concept of justice. That nobody should get misrecognized, misrepresented. All Muslims are like this. All Christians are like this. All Sikhs will be like this. Misrepresentation. In America, all Asians will be like this. Right? Misrecognition, not recognition, no recognition for who you are. Ambedkar comes back with 2 doctorates. He's teaching in Vadodara, in the university there. The others don't even have 1 doctorate. The man has to eat his lunch alone in the faculty room. So you're recognized for being a Dalit, and so nobody will touch you. And misrecognized because you're a doctorate and nobody wants to recognize that. So these are all, that's why I'm saying this constitution was written through blood and sweat of Indians, lived experience of Indians. So preserve it and protect it. The only way to preserve it is to practice it. Otherwise it will die. So we have to practice this constitution, we have to believe in this constitution. The other writer is Karl Clare. His article is called Legal Culture and Transformative Constitutionalism. It's published in South African Journal on Human Rights. And he's recently teamed up with another to write further revisions of that article. And there are many others, but I will not burden you with all that. I'll end with, I think I've already overshot time. We'll end with a video. Again, who else but Dr. Ambedkar? And this is what he's saying in the, yeah, all right.
This one?
No, before that. Volume just.
Let us leave aside slogans. Let us leave aside words which frighten people. Let us even make concession to the prejudices of our opponents. Bring them in so that they may willingly join with us on marching upon their road. Because I said, if we walk long enough, must necessarily lead us to unity. Is it truly a question to reduce to the position we have? It is not a legal. I say, leave aside all these considerations and make some attempt whereby those who are not prepared to come will come. Let us make it possible for them.
Thank you. Thank you for your patient listening. So I'll take questions if you have.
The floor is now open for questions and answers. So anyone who has questions, the mic will be passed to you. Please raise your hands. We're opening for 2 questions.
Before the questions start, I had a small quiz for you. So I don't want the same person to answer. Can I have the names? Don't tell me Nehru, Patel and all, okay? I want the names of the others whom you saw in the first clip. You want me to play that clip again? Who is the very first speaker? I already gave you the answer. What was he in the first cabinet? What was he? Very good. Excellent. Then? Next was Nehru. 1 minute.
हमारी मुल्क की ज़बान
Okay.
तमाम मुल्क की कौमी और
This is Nehru. This is? This is? What was Patel by profession? Lawyer, correct. Which satyagraha did he participate in? Know your constitutional history, sir. Okay, this person you may not know.
Mr. President, the flame of God is invoked by every nation of honor, and God is an impartial entity, and he should be allowed to remain so.
Who is this? Anyone from Bengal here? No one from Bengal? Who's from Bengal here? Anybody? No. Her name is Purnima Banerjee. Powerful speaker. Do you know which was the member in the Constituent Assembly, woman member from here? Dakshayani Vedal. Sir, why are you answering? These are students. You seem to know more than everybody else.
Nuals conducts a lecture in memory of
Dakshayani. Very powerful speaker. You know, it's so inspiring to read her speeches.
With these words, I appeal to Mr. Kamath not to put us into any embarrassment of voting upon God.
It is said that the state should, within a period of
Okay, this you may not know, Anantasayanam Iyengar. Okay. This you should know because he was in the committee.
Problem in providing for and guaranteeing
Okay.
fundamental rights in any constitution.
Okay, this is for the faculty. Who is this? No. Yes, exactly, sir. Let's give him a hand, I say. This is Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, who is talking about curtailing fundamental rights. If you've seen Article 21, we didn't follow the due process clause of the American Constitution makers, but we only say procedure established by law.
Where to draw the line between personal liberty and social control.
That's it. So that he was a very, very influential person in the Constituent Assembly. This, of course, all of you know. Oh, it's only for the students. Who is this? Arjun Prasad. All right. Where was he from? What was he? What was his profession? Sorry? Why don't you get up and say it? I say. Whoever is answering. Who is answering? Get up and answer, no problem. So we'll get claps for it. 1 minute, 1 minute. Which satyagraha did he participate in? Yes, who said that? Get up, sir. Give him a big hand. Have you been to Champaran? Why don't you people organize yourself and go to and see what happened in Champaran? You know where it is? Okay. All right. Okay, questions? No questions. I'm very happy if there are no questions.
There is one hand.
Yes, get up and say it.
So, you mentioned a lot of indexes.
Correct. Yeah.
So, sir, we see today that the government often likes to denounce indexes.
Correct.
So, sir, I've seen many of my friends also get along with that narrative that, these indexes are wrong.
It's a conspiracy, foreign conspiracy against India.
Yes,
Correct.
So, sir, how do we define
In UN, there are so many people sitting in the UN preparing all of this only to conspire against India.
how do we actually define ourselves against
Nothing. Lies can only be met with truth. Lies can never be met with more lies. And it will struggle with the WhatsApp age. Truth has a great struggle against lies. but be on the side of truth. Don't be afraid, that's all. Like what happened during COVID, right? We saw all those migrants go back to their villages right in front of our eyes, and the government was in denial. Yes. See, you will find that the same people, if the report says that India's GDP has improved, will publish it in the front page. So as long as those world indices and reports say good things, they are the best. If they say anything negative, they are the worst. Yes. Yes, please, please. A pleasure always.
I have two questions and both are.
Yes.
You talked about the complete arc in 377 section.
Correct.
My first question is, why should we have to wait for that 10 years?
Because society is not ready. See what happened when Nas... You can't. No, but see, look, all the Vaikam Satyagraha, when it happened in some 1919, correct? 1921 or 1919. And today we are in 100 years later. Even today, the President of India goes to Puri Jagannath and the Pandas there create a problem. I'm just telling you that it takes so long for societal transformation to happen. You have to accept it. So sometimes when you give this ruling as a court, a constitutional court, people are forced to sit up and take notice. So it does take time. And judges also mirror what society is. So 2 judges say this, 2 other judges say something exactly the opposite. And then it requires 5 more judges to say, no, the first 2 judges were right. Because this takes time. Because it's a societal change, it takes time. Because there are 2 forces at work here, sir. The progressive force and the regressive force. Even today, if you're having child marriages, there is something regressive in society, right? All this education has not helped us come out of that.
My second question is, I think you will not be diplomatic. If you not deliver a diplomatic answer, I really want to know your take on NJAC. Because
see, we don't have a better alternative yet. See, NJAC was thought of to replace the existing collegium system, correct? The existing collegium system is hugely problematic. There's no difficulty. The system preceding the collegium system was equally problematic. Nobody is confident that the NJAC will be better than either of these 2 systems. It has not been thought through well enough, this is my personal take, to eliminate possibility of us regressing into one of these systems. We somehow believe that when we put together 6 people in a room or 7 people in a room, they'll come up with a wise solution. If we put the wrong 7 people, in fact, I shouldn't quote Ambedkar again, but Ambedkar said this. A good constitution in the hands of bad people will become a bad constitution. So even ultimately it is on the honesty, integrity of the individuals who will constitute that system. Somebody said, oh, we should have an independent commission. Now who will appoint people to that independent commission? Again we are back to square one. Lokpal, that's how it's failed, right? Lokpal was supposed to be this anti-corruption body, supreme body. But if you appoint people to that body who are going to be, answering the dictates of the appointer, then the body has no purpose left. So we haven't found easy answers to these things. In India, in holders of office itself, it's an experience that we've all had all these years. If a strong person comes into an office, even if they don't have enough powers, they'll make a change. A person who is weak and is occupying an office with a lot of powers will weaken the office. So it is so individual-centric, the kind of people who come to occupy these positions. People can misuse. When the Nazi regime happened, first thing they went and changed the constitution, right? So in whose hands are you giving these powers is very important. Yes, yes.
One is with respect to interest. We have individual interest, public interest, and social interest.
Correct.
And with respect to social interest, everyone has a social interest in protecting social institutions.
Yes.
Family, marriage. Suppose a decision is coming, which judgment comes out like they deviates from the socially accepted norm. No, like for example, marriage is a
No, an excellent question. No, it's an excellent question. So generation after generation has to answer this. See, your next generation doesn't have this doubt. You talk to the students in +2, they have no problems about lesbians and gays because they see them around them and they suddenly recognize their own. See, nobody is fully masculine and fully feminine. You've seen it in our own families and ourselves, right? I may not admit it in public, but if a boy wants to choose the pink color, we'll tell him, no, girls choose pink color. Don't we say that? We restrict the choice of that child. Why? We have associated some things with some things. But as generations progress, they break out of these things. So our generation, we are trapped. I would consider it a trap. It's our own weakness. In our lifetime, we are not able to overcome this weakness of ours. That's how I see it. We are very safe in this cocoon that we've built around us. We don't want to walk out of it. By all means, do that. Don't restrict the other person from breaking their cocoons and breaking their glass ceilings or breaking their walls. They have a right to do that.
The second one will be with respect to the concept of social progress. That also talks about right to shelter. So you were referring to the Vedanta judgment, Orissa Mining Corporation versus State of Orissa. It's about displacement. There is concept of bulldozer justice.
Yes. It's not justice. There are antonyms. Yes, I know.
How do you relate it with transformative constitution?
Negative transformations. So this is seizing power. I have the power. Jiski haath mein lathi, uska bail. You heard that Hindi phrase, right? I have the power. Who are you to tell me? You're some court. I'll deal with you. I'll first go ahead and do it. Don't read to me the constitution. Don't read to me the statute. I have the power. And then what happens? January 6th in 2021, somebody captures the Capitol in United States with his followers and wants to deny somebody who's lawfully elected. Correct? That person should not have got re-elected. Somebody who defies the constitution, but he gets re-elected. So somewhere it comes back to us. Who are we as people? How much do we protest against this? Somebody's house was bulldozed, right? How many of us not belonging to that community protested? Tell me. Nobody. We just look the other way. It's happening to somebody else. We don't know if that young boy shouted Pakistan Zindabad by watching Babar Azam score a boundary. We don't know that. He doesn't have a right to say that. If it's a beautiful shot, I'm a good cricketer, doesn't matter whether Virat Kohli played it or Babar Azam played it, correct? Now, because my child said, fantastic shot by Babar Azam, somebody will come with a bulldozer and strike off my house. That is bad enough, but what were all of us doing? We have no problem with it. That is where the problem is. Somebody with power will do it. If you, who are supposed to be the better knowing persons, do nothing about it, tomorrow when that man stands for election, you'll vote him back, you have no one else to blame. We must feel strongly about these things. It's a testing time for us. That's why I'm saying preserve this document. If we lose this, we lose everything. Like you've heard the phrase, losing the plot. If we lose this, we lose everything. We can't all be in one room like this. Please think of it. Yes. Thank you. This was very interesting for me, the question and answer. Thank you.
And public service. As a retired judge of the Delhi High Court and former Chief Justice of the Orissa High Court, your legacy of principal jurisprudence continues to inspire us all and remind us that positive transformation can start with each and every one of us. Thank you. As a token of our gratitude and appreciation, we would now like to present a memento to our esteemed Chief Guest, Honorable Dr. S.Muralidhar. I request Honorable Mr. Justice S.Muralidhar, retired, Acting Vice Chancellor of Nuals, to kindly do the honors and present the memento.
Come. I'll take it from both. Thank you.
As we draw the session to a close, we now invite Dr. Narayan, Faculty Coordinator Nuals, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. For me, on a personal note, this area is very close to heart. I've been working on it for years, so I didn't miss the opportunity to take up coordination for this event, and I didn't think twice, because I got to interact personally with a very esteemed person. Unlike previous speakers who have come to our university and who have talked in this area, they usually follow the pattern of first going into the judgment and criticizing the judgment, and then comparing it with South African jurisprudence, from where the idea of transformative constitutionalism has originally stemmed. So this was a roundabout fashion, which is comparatively new to all of us, talking about how we generally live dichotomous lives, and it is upon us individually to change our perceptions, which will probably collectively change the societal interest or societal, or whatever you call it, public morality, constitutional morality, and finally it will be reflected through law and the role of the judiciary. So I'm very glad, and on behalf of Nuals and the entire staff, faculty present here, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Honorable Dr. Justice S.Muralidhar, former Chief Justice of Orissa High Court, to have come here and delivered a lecture in this area. Thank you, sir. I would next like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Honorable Justice Sri Jagan, and also Professor Dr. Leena Matthew, our Registrar, for organizing this event. We also would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Kochi International Foundation, especially the Chairman, Mr. Ramachandran, for co-hosting the event. I would also like to place on record my thanks on behalf of the institution to S.S. Satish Chandran, Honorable Justice Kerala High Court, to Sri Dinesh Thampi, Vice President TCS, to Vijit, who has been coordinating with me for the last couple of weeks, to all our student volunteers, to participants, especially students who have come up from CUSAT, all the way just to hear this lecture, to our technical assistants, to all the faculty and staff present here. Thank you. Thank you for listening and interacting for the last 2 hours. Thank you.
Thank you all once again for your presence and participation. Wishing everyone fruitful and enriching day.
This is special gift for you. Thank you so much.
Madam.